see you here. How we doing? Great. Well, we have some exciting stuff to learn today. We are going to learn a little bit about value. Does anybody here know what value is? Mackenzie?
The light or darkness of tones or colors.
That's right. That's right. And so that was our first vocabulary word today. And it is a very important concept in art. Many paintings start out with an underpainting. Usually they don't use black and white. It's usually like a red color. But you'll start a painting by using value in these red tones. And once you have your red tones all over the painting, then once it dries, you go back over it with the colors that you actually want. And value applies to all colors. But today we are actually learning it in our grayscale. Does somebody want to read the definition for gradation value?
I will.
Keisha?
Is a visual technique of gradually transitioning from one color hue to another, or from one shade to another.
Exactly. And so a gradation value is a transition that sometimes we see as being very defined, and sometimes it's not so defined. An example of a definition that is very defined, you can see that there's a definite, black than white. However, there's a lot of grays in this picture. And you can see how the gradation value slowly goes out into this lighter gray here. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one example. And we'll get more into that a little bit later. On our next word, can somebody read to me the tone? Mac.
Light and dark values used to render a realistic object.
Yes, and with tone as well as value, you're going to use this a lot, not only in painting but also in sketching and drawing. This helps you create a very realistic object, makes things pop out, like in this picture. We have a lot of shadowing here. And all these values and tones are going to create an image that seems more realistic. On the next word, contrast. Acacia?
Refers to the arrangement of opposite elements, light and dark.
Can you say that one more time?
Refers to the arrangement of opposite elements, light and dark.
Okay, yes. So we're talking more about the contrast between this really light color and well, let's say, here's a better example. This really dark color under here is creating a very dark shadow. We can see that, right? And up against this white egg, it really creates an object that looks like it's three-dimensional. Contrast is very important in creating 3D effects in a painting or a drawing. So all these terms pretty much go together to create this realistic image. What is a cast shadow? Keisha?
It's not a solid shape, but varies in tone and value. The farther the cast shadow is from the object, the lighter and softer and less defined it becomes its edges.
Yes. And then, Mac, how about a form shadow?
It's the less defined dark side on an object not facing the light source.
Right. So I was going to demonstrate to you guys the cast shadow and the form shadow real quick on this rock here. So right now we can see, just sitting here with the light coming from above, that the shadow is just kind of around it, right? But when you apply the light in different ways, you can see that the cast shadow would be this shadow here. That's the shadow that's being casted out from the object. The form shadow is the shadow here that is actually on the form. And by shaping this shadow in certain ways, like it's curved, we give it a curvature here, we are actually creating a more 3D image. Do you understand? Yeah. Okay, and then, so when we move, we can also play around with light and shadow to make different effects. And see, when you move the light this way, you have a longer cast shadow. Also, the form shadow becomes a little more dramatic. Do you see that? And over here, your highlight. It becomes becomes very dramatic. And then when you bring it back above, you can see how the light changes the shadow. And this is very important to consider whenever you're considering creating another piece of art of your own. So you always want to play around with light, and always be thinking about your light source whenever you are going to create a painting or a drawing, and which direction that light source is coming, where those cast shadows and form shadows are going to fall on your picture. Today, we are actually going to get a little bit, oh yes, Acacia?
In that painting you have right there for the examples, where is your source, your light source?
My source, it appears, is going to be coming from this. Nope, actually, if you can look at the background, it is coming from this side because there's lighter areas in the background here and darker areas in the background here, casting the shadow this way. So the light source was kind of above it right here. And that's why it's not so long. It's not like way over here, because that would have created a longer shadow. So yeah, good question. And so today we're going to create a grayscale so you can get a little bit of a practice with using different values. And in front of you, you will find a grayscale already printed out. And the best way to create your own grayscale on this canvas paper, you can see that it's numbered, is to start with your black and your white on opposite ends, which I've already pre-mixed for you here, and you guys can share. And then what I'm going to have you do is go to the middle color, your mid-tone, probably around the 5 area. So you're going to create that mid-tone first and see if you can't match it. And that's why I have these illustrations here, so that you can try to match that mid-tone the best as possible. And I always think that it's easier to do it that way than to start with the black and then go from, you know, a lighter black all the way to the white. It often gets a little messy, and it's very hard to predict how the white's going to interact with the black, how much to use. White is very powerful, and so is black. So starting with the middle tone is actually going to help you go one way or the other a little easier. Okay, so we're going to use these little tubs here, and then you can see there's 10 of them. The black and the white's already here. And there's 10 total, so you might want to go right in here to this one to create that mid-tone. And you can mix it right in the little tubs with your palette knives. Don't use the paintbrushes to mix. When you do that, it actually is not good for the paintbrush, the bristles on the paintbrush. So we want to keep proper care of our paintbrushes. And yeah, use your palette knives. And is there any other questions that you guys have before we move on with this?
Yeah, so what do we have a stick for?
The stick is just in case you would like to use that instead of the palette knife. I wasn't sure what you'd be more comfortable with. Sometimes I prefer using a stick. It's a little bit easier sometimes than these big palette knives. Usually we use these on an actual palette. And since we are lacking that today, and we're doing it in the tubs, I wasn't sure which ones you guys would prefer. Okay, so you guys can go ahead and get started on getting your middle tone right here. And I'll scoot this back for you. Here's the black and the white. If you want to try creating, maybe doing like a 50-50, you know, like a squirt and a squirt, you can go ahead and try that. And of course, here's the water to rinse your brushes. Yep.
So do we just squirt it in the middle together?
Yep. Oh, that was a new one, huh?
Oh, I have an idea.
Couldn't have bothered to help me. Do you have plastic on?
are some instructions that are written that might make it a little easier if you have any questions. Right in here.
Alright. Oh, you've already poured in.
Yeah. Because it didn't take me ages to open them.
You got it? Yep, that looks about equal. There you go. And then you can hold this up to it to actually see if it's getting close to that mid-tone.
I think you're running more white.
And there you go, that's the trick there. You never know with the blacks and whites.
This is a catastrophe. This is a talc color.
Yeah, this one has a little bit of a pearlescence in it. And that's okay, as long as you're getting the tone that you need.
That's way too dark still.
It looks like it is a little bit dark, so you might want to add a little bit more white.
Yeah, girl. I went back too much. Like a 5. Wait, can you put a little paint on
Yeah,
that?
and you can use a little dot on the grayscale.
Okay, so we're going with the 5. Oh yeah, it was good.
So it looks like quite a bit more. Don't be worried, because you can always add more black.
Just put the entire paint bottle in one.
There, we're getting closer now.
Black is way more overpowered than the white.
You'd be surprised what the white can do. Oh yeah, you're getting way closer. What do you think?
I think we should add a little bit more white. Splash. Oh no, I always have to do too much.
Looks like that's getting pretty close. So you can see how difficult this might be. And this is just on your grayscale. Think about when you're doing other colors. Yeah, no, I think this is good. This is good.
I'd probably spread it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
It looks about.
Yeah. And keep in mind that when paint is wet, it's a little bit darker. So it might lighten up as it dries. So I think you got a good color right there. And now you can kind of get the idea of why it's so difficult, or why it might be difficult to start with the darkest color or the lightest color and try to move down the scale that way. It's very hard to judge how much white or black you're going to need just by getting that middle tone, you know. So there is an example. We're going to stop there for a second, and I wanted to share with you a couple of images. Using the grayscale.